Hey guys, back in the shop here with a continual build series on the Eflite Viper90 converted to turbine build series. Today we're going to talk about the component selection, the layout, and all of the little things that I do prior to mounting the hardware. Really important information. It's more informative, but it's really important, and it's really valuable before you start assembling the components into the model. So without further ado, here we go. All right, guys, here we have our ready to install Eflite Viper90 with all of the modifications that I've done to accept the turbine engine, the cutouts made for the fuel tank, and some of the things that I do inside of the fuselage I want to share with you. And I want to stress something, that it's really important for you to be able to get all of this inside of this. You've got to minimize the wiring spaghetti that comes with this model from the factory. So as you can see down here, I have hardwired the Y connectors together, so there's actually no connectors. They're all hard soldered in place, which minimizes the wiring mess. Again, you don't have a lot of real estate to put all of that in here. So unless you do this accordingly, you'll never get it all in here, because we have a plethora of wires and fuel lines and vent lines, and there's just no way to do it. No way to do it. So you're seeing my hands a lot on the camera because I talk with my hands. But anyway, so a couple of things that I do from the factory mod that I do is this foam right here, 3/8 of an inch have been removed right here, so I can fit the accumulator in and move that back about 3/8 of an inch. It gives me more room between the UAT and the smoke tank. So it just, it's an easy modification. I just take a razor blade and I just push it down and I remove 3/8 of an inch here, and that's what it is. It takes a few minutes. It's pretty simple to do, but that moves that accumulator, the UAT, and the smoke pump forward a little bit to give me a little more clearance. I also added a small little wood piece right here that is creates a hard place for the screw to go into wood for the UAT. So you can see I've got my pre-drilled holes for the smoke pump mount and the UAT already done. All of the wire, again, is all length to fit everything exactly without having a lot of excess, because again, you don't have room for excess wiring. So the only other thing that I do is I make a slot right here. I lengthen this slot for the stock battery strap. This is going to be the strap that holds the smoke tank in. So I come forward about 1/4 of an inch with a slot just to move that strap aft a little bit, which centers it on the smoke tank. And I'll show you that real quick. That just slides in here. Real simple. I'm just going to roughly do this here for you guys, just to give you an idea how that's going to be positioned. Again, I've got this thing minimized on wiring, so you're going to have to do what I did or you'll never get it to fit. Trust me on this. When you see how much stuff is packed in to this model, when it's all said and done, you'll be like, how did you get all that in here? Well, I did it because I spent a lot of time figuring out everything from lights and links and position and all that. So this position where that strap is forward a little bit gives me plenty of room to mount. The receiver is going to double stick tape here, and the brake gyro is going to be positioned right here. So that's why that lead comes right into here, and that will plug right into the brake gyro right there. So these are going to be positioned there. So the strap kind of separates them, and it gives you plenty of clearance. Now this airplane, I installed a Unilight system, so I've got nav lights and strobe lights beacons and a nose floodlight, landing light. So I've added wiring for all of the Unilights that are in this model. And just to show you where that component is going to go, and that is going to go, here's the module for that. This is going to go in this position right down here. And that's going to tuck nice and neat right there on the side of the tank. The ECU, or the hub of the turbine, is going to get mounted in this position right here. So that's the basic layout. Again, I don't have the fuel tank in here, but when that fuel tank comes in here, there's just a small couple inch cavity right here for all of this wire and all of these junctions to have a place to go. Not to mention, I don't have the vent line and the vent smoke line, for fuel line and smoke line, that goes down through here, but I'll show you that as we put this thing together. So I can't stress it enough. You've got to do this wiring modification or you'll never get it all in here. It makes life way easier, and it really is the most time-consuming part of this modification, is hand soldering your wiring to make it fit custom. I spent a lot of time in thought coming up with this, and on the first Viper, it worked really, really good. It's still packed really tight, and this is the version 2. So the first Viper was a 13-ounce smoke tank, and I wanted a little bit more smoke, so 16 ounces in this model. And this also put the receiver up here on top where it's easier to get to if you have to remove it, where the other one was on its side. So a little bit different configuration, but I think this is going to work overall a lot better. And it'll give me 3 more ounces of smoke, which is probably another minute long, or minute and a half, or whatever it comes out to on smoke. So really important. I can't stress it enough about that. I'm going to spend time talking about this right now because it's important. Now, if you don't do the Unilights, you won't have to mess with that or the wiring behind that. So another really important part of this, and another thing is I have created a custom wiring harness. This wiring harness has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different leads coming out of it. And one of the things to make a Viper, turbine Viper with a smoke system, is you don't have enough real estate for lots of batteries. It just doesn't work. So we are going to run one battery on this whole entire airplane. Now, I can't stress this enough. This is a 70C Thunder Power 1800 milliamp battery. This battery is a really good battery. It provides 70C, so it has a lot of power available. This airplane, the first Viper that we flew, it only consumes on an 8-minute flight, including startup and cool down, 300 milliamps per flight. Additional lighting for this airplane, we tested it. It uses about 200 milliamps in one 8-minute flight, or I should say a 12-minute overall. Startup, taxi, the whole thing is 12 minutes. So I burn about 200 milliamps. So right now, this particular setup, I'm going to consume approximately 500 milliamps in one flight. That's the top end of this battery. And again, I can't stress this enough. You have to charge it every single flight. Now, you think, oh, that's not a big deal. It isn't a big deal. We charge our batteries when we fly EDFs and electrics. It's not a big deal to charge every time. Could I get another flight out of it, out of 1,800 mils? Probably 2 more flights, but you don't want to chance it. You want to be on the top end of this battery to maximize the available current for all of those components. Because you have to realize that you're running a smoke pump, you're running the Unilight system, you're running the brake system off of that 7.2 volts, and you're running everything through a BAC or I'm sorry, a BEC that powers the airplane and the landing gear at 5 volts. So all of this, again, is powered with one battery, and it works really, really well. And they don't recommend this from the factory, but if you do things right, and I believe I'm doing things right, and after flying the first Viper 50 flights, no issues, charge every flight, and I'm taking the battery down to 80% on the flight, which means I have that maximum current available for that turbine. I think it'll be a lot easier to do. So all of that is basically what I do to make this a smoking turbine Viper. So a couple other things I do. This is the fuel pump mount, and this is a cover for the nose gear blade so you don't get grass and things like that blowing up into your cockpit. Not to mention it puts it in a real convenient place right here on top. Access screws are through the gear well to take that on and off once you glue that in, but it puts it in a really really nice place because the UAT is going to go right here with 4 screws, and then the smoke pump, and I'm just going to lay this in here to give you guys an idea how that's going to look. The smoke pump with 3 screws go right there. So the pump is mounted in position in a place where all the lines will go right through and strategically streamline the setup. Again, you don't see all the fuel lines and smoke lines and vent lines yet, and it's still pretty crowded. So again, when this is done, it's going to be a packed little airframe. So every tiny little inch of space is huge on this model. So that's the basic layout. Again, the battery pack, as you remember in the other videos, will go right up in here and slide up there in that position. The engine data screen gets positioned right here, nice and snug in the airplane, because I fly with that in the airplane. It stays in the model. That gets positioned right there. So again, everything is laid out perfectly. When I put the cable in, or the Y harness, there's a little air scoop right down here. This BEC fits snugly right into that air scoop slot, and you can see it there a little bit. Then the Y harness, or the tri harness, or quad harness, whatever you want to call it, is positioned there. You got your battery connector. Again, you got all your Ys going off to the brakes, going off to the unilights, and then going to the receiver. Your plug plugs right into the hub. So that's the basic layout. And again, I have it just laying in here just to give you a general idea how that's all going to look as we put it together. Another thing to mention also is I use split loom. This is 10-inch long. I believe it's 1/2-inch split loom. And I have the fuel line, the smoke line, the ECU cable, the elevator, and the rudder extension all going through this split loom. And where that is positioned in where the fuel tank is sit, this will come right around the fuel tank like this and up to the turbine. So when you look inside the intake of the turbine, and I'll show you a picture of that, as you look into it, you will see that it's kind of like an umbilical cord will wrap around that fuselage, and it'll be in the airstream. But it's not a problem. It's not an eyesore. It's tucked in there nice. The turbine gets plenty of fuel, or plenty of air in this arrangement. So those are the things that we've got already pre-done, and a little bit of that it goes a long way when you're getting ready to install all of this. So a couple other things that I want to talk about too real quick is tank here. The smoke tank that I used is made by Craft Products. They're available through Mecco, .com, MECOA.com. Sometimes they're out of stock, but they're still making these tanks. Really important, and why I selected this tank. Again, all these components are off the shelf, but they're rearranged in a way that fits really well in the airplane. So one of the reasons we use this tank is it's a unique shape. You can see where they taper the back of this so it drains really well inside the airplane. And you can see that angle. This is really important because my fuel lines are going to come around down here, and they're going to come out, and that little space right there, that creates a little room or a little pocket for that fuel line to go through, because they're going to exit right around that tank. So that little cutout right there, I've got fuel line and smoke line coming around there. So it really makes for a perfect setup. It's 16 ounce, it's low profile. It's we use double stick tape right here, so this will get stuck to the fuselage, and the strap helps hold it in too. So this tank is not moving, it's not going to go anywhere. And it has a nice flat platform here for the receiver to be double stuck taped down to, and the brake gyro will be use servo tape to hold it down too. Taylor's going to make me a custom 3D bracket that we're going to work on, but for right now we're going to double stick tape these right to the top of the tank. They stick really well, and then I add a piece of Velcro around here to hold that receiver in also. That's a little additional thing that I do too. But anyway, this is the basic layout before I put all this thing together. So I wanted to share all of that with you because all of this is really important to make this work and to make for a good install and a neat install. Once you get all this in, you have a really well laid out functional install. Not to mention it's super user friendly. In my first Viper has been flawless. I haven't had any issues. Everything's worked perfectly. And I can't say enough about how the layout, all that hard work and time that I took in thought to lay it out and figure it out has paid off. So you have a really fun airplane with a smoke system out of a foam airplane, which is really just, you don't see very many people doing it. And everything's high-end components. The power box smoke pump, best smoke pump on the market. It doesn't siphon, so it works really, really well. The JMP Jet Model Products UAT, nice, well-made, highly filtered UAT, fits just in here perfect. And everything's hard mounted. So that floorboard inside there is super critical, very important, and that's how we do this install. So now that I've explained everything and how I've put the time into making this all lay out, we're going to begin to install these components in this video. So I can walk you through my little struggles and trials on how I do that. And I don't know how long this is going to take, and I'm not sure how that's going to come out in the end, but we're going to give it a shot because I want you guys to be able to replicate everything that I do, because I know that once this is all done, it'll work flawlessly, and you'll have a great flying model and an inexpensive model compared to a high dollar $2,000 airframe versus a $500 or $600 airframe. So anyway, that's it. I think I've covered everything to do this install. One other quick thing to talk about on the engine, I made this smoke rail out of, I got these smoke nozzles from Aero Panda. I think they're about $28. I think you get 2 of them. They're actually about 12 inches long. I go ahead and I cut them, and then I rebend it and I smash the end, and I fit it for this turbine application. It's got a really cool little 4mm screw-on fitting on the end. I use the hold-down bolt for the mount for the engine, and I strap that on there. Super clean, super easy, and it smokes awesome. It really does. It smokes great. But it's a super easy install, and it's one of the few things that I did modify on the engine side of it. Again, we make these. I made these plates right here for mounting in the stock position in the airframe. So this motor is using the stock hard point to mount the engine on. And these mounts, they're really rigid. They don't move. The motor's been solid. So the stock mount works great. So anyway, outside of that, that's really the only thing left, is to put all this stuff in permanently and make it work. So I've done a lot of talking here. I thought it was important to explain how I do everything. And if you follow this, I think you'll have a great Viper. Now, Talco oil, you see the paint scheme. We got the yellow and black paint scheme on this model. Talco Oils is one of our generous donors into the Lightspeed Air Show, and they've been a supporter of us financially over the last several years, and they are a major blessing to the Lightspeed Air Show. And we actually have a Talco airplane that we fly in the schools too. And Talco, one of the great things about Talco, not only are they wonderful partners in STEM education and the Lightspeed Air Show, but they actually manufacture the smoke oil that we use in this airframe, in these airplanes. I've been using the LubeSpar 107 smoke oil from the very beginning of me flying jets. How many years? 15 years or so. And they make a great smoke oil. They use it full scale. Guys put it in their airplanes for smoke systems. They sell it by the drum. They sell it by 5 gallons. They're based here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it's called LubeSpar right here on the tail. LubeSpar 107 is the name of the smoke oil. So we thought it'd be fun to make this the LubeSpar 107 Talco oil special. And because they do so much for us, I always like paying back when they do something like that for us. We like to compliment them, and the owners of the company, who are wonderful friends of our organization, will be really surprised when they see this in their company colors and logos. So that's why I modified this and customized it to make it like this. So that's pretty much it on all the components and everything else. So we're ready to go. We're ready to put it together, and I think we'll start cutting this all up and editing all this. So I walk you through how I put everything in, and my wonderful camera lady, Miss Tracy, who's holding the camera right now, so I can use my hands, is going to assist me in shooting these videos. So we'll give her a little golf clap right now, and we won't show her because she's shy, and that wouldn't go over really well. So we're not going to do that. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to get started on the install. So thanks for hanging with me from this point forward. And I know I talk a lot, but I try to cover everything. So if I forget something, I'll try to add it in as we go. All right, guys, here we go.